Do a sound check on Zoom. Can the Zoom folks hear me? Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's good to be here on this last class of our intro class. You made it. Maybe you didn't think you were going to make it, but everything has a beginning and an end. So it's maybe a little poignant, a little bittersweet. We'll have some time to reflect a little bit on what you may be taking with you from the class, because even though the class is ending, your mindfulness journey doesn't have to end, and we hope it is just starting. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But to start, I'll lead a bit of a longer meditation. Since you're now 6 weeks in, you can handle it. It's just 30 minutes, so just a bit longer than we've been sitting. So go ahead and get comfortable. And maybe just as we settle in a really natural way, appreciating that you made it here and whatever intention got you here tonight and to sign up for this class and to do some reflection and practice at home. Just to appreciate this is worth appreciating. It's not nothing. And always when we sit down to practice awareness, there's a bit of a beginner's mind, starting over, starting anew. This moment is new, is arising. And maybe there's some sense of the rightness or the wholesomeness simply of being with our direct experience, attending to it, independent of what it is that we're noticing. Maybe there's some sense that it's good just to know how it is, to be with how it is. We don't have to try to control our experience, push away any experience that's unpleasant, try to hold on to any experience that's pleasant. Instead, we can be interested in awareness, this natural capacity to be here now, to know what's here now, to sense in the body what's here now, moving. To feel what's in the body, moving. These different attentional capacities that are a natural part of our mind and body. So our practice can be as simple as noticing these natural attentional capacities to know, to sense, to feel. This is happening. The question is, are we interested in it? Are we tuned into it? In every moment, something is being known. Attention is moving to notice a sound or a body sensation or a thought. But whatever the object of awareness is, it's being known here and now. And we're more interested in that continuity of awareness than in trying to control what is being known. What is being known is just the nature of the mind and body expressing themselves, arising, passing. It can be easeful to release some of our habitual tendency to try to control the objects of awareness, and in a sense, settle back and notice that whatever object is arising, it's being known here and now. Sounds are being known, body sensations are being known, thoughts moving through the mind are being known, emotion is being known. It's just something being known moment by moment. So it's possible to put our attention and our intention more on this continuity of awareness, but not necessarily a continuity of the object of awareness, and to simply let attention choose what's naturally predominant in our experience moment by moment. So we can practice releasing any preference, even for what we've cultivated as a mindfulness anchor. That may still arise, we may still notice it. But if something else arises, then we can know that. more interested in the awareness, continuity of awareness. Simply receiving what's already here to be known, what the mind is already sensitive to. Remembering it's okay to relax the body. It's okay to relax the mind, as if the brain were a muscle that we could relax. And the effort that we make is not to control our experience, but simply to be interested. What's being known now in this moment? What's here to be known? And that question is just an invitation to be sensitive to what's being known. You don't need to answer the question necessarily. And then sustaining that interest moment by moment, what's being known now in this moment. And from time to time, you could check in to the attitude of the mind that's being aware. Maybe there's some liking the experience or disliking the experience or not really being connected. And then if we notice an attitude like that, or an attitude of peacefulness and contentment, non-contention, clarity, then we just know that That's another object of awareness. Not liking feels like this, or liking feels like this, or feeling disconnected from my experience feels like this. Just another object of awareness to be known, not to judge ourselves as good or bad, simply to include any attitude towards our experience in our awareness. For the last few moments of the sit, if you'd like, you can have your eyes open if they've been closed, gazing at the floor in front of you in an easeful way, noticing that scene is happening without us needing to look intentionally. So feel free to stand if you'd like and stretch. So we'll have time in a little bit to have some sharing in small groups of two. Just a little bit about what you're taking with you from this class. But before that, I'll share a little bit on this theme of a bit about sort of the bigger picture of why we practice. You know, there's times when we sit in meditation, but really the path of mindfulness is meant to include all of our lives. So I'll talk a little bit about that and the frame of um, skillful and unskillful, or wholesome, unwholesome, leading to happiness, leading to suffering, which we've talked about a lot, I think, this class, but I'll say a little bit more about that in the context of our whole life, really, as a field for cultivating awareness. Just saying that right now is kind of made me realize, like, oh yeah, that would be a skillful way to think of life as a field for cultivating awareness and other wholesome qualities. So what do we mean by wholesome or skillful? It's a translation of the word kusala, and both those words, skillful or wholesome, have slightly different meanings. So skillful, like something that we are developing skill at, and wholesome, something that's beneficial, leading to happiness. So we could say that we're becoming more skilled at happiness and and what's beneficial, skilled at following what's beneficial, and skilled at discerning what's beneficial from what's not beneficial. The Buddha famously said that he only taught one thing: suffering and the end of suffering. Such a pragmatic, direct statement. There's a lot of things we can be concerned with in life, and a lot of things we have to concern ourselves with, just to take care of ourselves, take care of each other. And yet, maybe all along, this um, focus on what's beneficial or suffering and the end of suffering can accompany us all along as we go about our day, our life, through our lives. So that motivation of addressing suffering is really at the heart of the Buddha's teachings. And to put it in a positive light, the motivation of wanting, wishing for well-being. And so there's a lot of different aspects of what the Buddha taught, but they all revolve around that sort of ethical framework, whether it's sitting in meditation, where we're seeing in a more subtle way how even just little small movements of the mind can lead to tension in the body. Just a thought might arise about something in our life, and we notice our body getting tight, or the mind beginning to proliferate. And in a way, you could say, oh, that's causing some harm. It's just that mental activity in a subtle way is causing the body to suffer. And we can care about that. So that can be on that subtle level. And then as we bring mindfulness in a more obvious way to just our activities in life, there's so much we can learn bringing mindfulness into daily life, into our interactions, our livelihood. There's really no part of our life that needs to be outside the bounds of our interest in including in awareness. There might be parts of our life that we don't want to include in our awareness, but even that could be a cause for interest. Oh, why does this part of my life or this activity, does it seem like somehow not appropriate or beneficial to include that in awareness? And luckily for us, the Buddha didn't say that we should uh, only be aware of the wholesome and the skillful qualities in our mind, because you may have noticed in meditation at times a few less than wholesome or less than skillful um, qualities. I know I have. And again, that doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It just means, oh, this is leading to stress here and now in my experience. And if I imagine acting on it, I could imagine how that could cause stress, for others. But it's really good to see that. And this, it's so obvious when we think about it, and yet um, we can sort of have the presumption that, yeah, being a good meditator or being mindful is to only experience beautiful, lovely qualities of mind. But the Buddha was really clear. So I'll just read from a from a discourse of the Buddha. He says, when you know there is greed, hatred, or delusion within you, and when you know there is no greed, hatred, or delusion within you, then you know the Dharma that is visible here and now, immediate, inviting to be seen for oneself, onward leading, and to be personally realized by the wise. And that's just one passage, but there's other passages, like a very important teaching is the four establishments of mindfulness. Um, and the third one is the mind. And he goes through different qualities, but basically saying when when the mind is affected by greed, know the mind affected by greed. When the mind is not affected by greed, know the mind not affected by greed. And that's it. That's the teaching in that section. It goes through different qualities, but it doesn't say, then judge yourself. It's just we want to know how the mind is. And by being by knowing how the mind is, then we'll also see what the results of those mind states are. Like I was saying, immediately, if we act them out, we'll notice maybe how they affect others or affect our actions. So we might wonder how to distinguish between kusala and akusala, or skillful and unskillful, wholesome and unwholesome, because there's all sorts of different opinions people can have, cultural norms, what's good, what's bad. So this is an important point about how the Buddha thought about this. And there's one famous discourse called the Kalama Sutta, um, about a group of people called the Kalamas who were asking this question. They were sort of confused because there were a lot of different spiritual teachers coming through their town and saying all sorts of different things. So they were just confused, like, what is correct, what is right? And so they asked the Buddha, and the Buddha said, well, you're confused, and I'm just paraphrasing, here are some criteria that aren't completely reliable to distinguish what's wholesome from unwholesome. So he said, don't go simply by oral tradition, a teaching lineage, common talk, scripture, logic, intuition, or reasoning, or by reason of the competence of the speaker, or because a person is one's own teacher. So all sorts of reasons why we might trust something. Well, that's the way, it's the tradition, or that they're my teacher, so I just do what they say. So, but instead of those reasons, then you should instead go by what's unwholesome or wholesome, blameworthy or blameless, censured by the wise or praised by them, leading to harm or welfare, and conducive to suffering or happiness. So I think the idea here is we have an internal ethical barometer, you could say. And, still, even some of those criteria, like censured by the wise or praised by them, it's not that we exclude other people's opinions, especially people that we think have some wisdom, or blameworthy or blameless. So there's these different words that maybe point also to what we imagine others might think, but it's a lot is what we can see and discern for ourselves, leading to harm or welfare. And there's another teaching where the Buddha is talking to his son, Rahula, and basically saying to observe the results of our actions. And that's one way um, to see whether they're wholesome or unwholesome, skillful or unskillful, both with bodily, verbal, and mental actions, and to reflect before doing an action, while doing the action, and after doing the action. Because sometimes we might not be clear until after we've done an action and we see, oh, this was the result. So the question about the actions that we should ask is, this action I want to do, would it lead to self-affliction, to the affliction of others, or to both? Would it be an unskillful action with painful consequences, painful results? If on reflection, it seems to be that way, then that sort of action is absolutely unfit for you to do. But if on reflection you know it would not cause affliction, it would be skillful with pleasant consequences, pleasant results, then an action of that sort is fit for you to do. So you reflect beforehand and even while you're doing it. How is this? Does this seem to be leading in a good direction? And then afterwards. And he goes on to say that all contemplatives of the past, present, and future who have purified their actions of body, speech, and mind did so in this way. So I think it's pointing to just, again, this sort of lifestyle of awareness. And it can sound maybe a little heavy, like, oh, I have to be constantly watchful. And that is some of the words that are used, things like watchfulness or vigilance. But it's a vigilance that's coming out of a deep care. It's coming from that primary motivation of wishing for our well-being and the well-being of others. There isn't, really an option, as much as we would like, of not having, not being consequences to our actions. Even wishing that there weren't consequences to our actions, or acting as though there weren't consequences to our actions, is an action that has consequences. Even just to, you know, not do anything. Inaction can be an action that has consequences. So we just come to that predicament, or that reality, that this is how things are. And yeah, it may seem heavy, but it's also the reason that it's possible to develop what's skillful, to train the mind, really. And I think anyone who's been practicing for any length of time could probably tell you, and maybe even in this room, maybe even just over the course of the last 6 weeks, like the value, the benefit of training the mind in different ways, because it leads to less suffering and more happiness. And not just in an esoteric way when we're sitting on our cushion, but just speaking from personal experience, like the happiness of having more awareness and discernment. So I'm less likely to do and say and think things that lead to my suffering, and more likely to do, say, and think things that might lead to happiness, to well-being. On that point, the Buddha said once, sort of around action and inaction, because I think it might have come out of a misunderstanding of people, which could be similar to what people might think nowadays. Or, oh yeah, meditation is passive or something like that, or mindfulness, it's just about accepting everything. We can hear that sort of teaching. And so I love this teaching from the Buddha about action and inaction. He says, I assert the non-doing of bodily, verbal, and mental misconduct. I assert the non-doing of the numerous kinds of bad, unwholesome deeds. It is in this way that one could rightly say of me, the ascetic Gautama, that was the Buddha's name, is a proponent of non-doing who teaches his Dhamma for the sake of non-doing and thereby guides his disciples. And Dhamma is the same word as Dharma and can mean teaching. So he says, I assert non-doing of harmful actions. And then he says, I assert the doing of bodily, verbal, and mental good conduct. I assert the doing of numerous kinds of wholesome deeds. It is in this way that one could rightly say of me, the ascetic Gautama is a proponent of doing, who teaches his Dhamma for the sake of doing and thereby guides his disciples. So he's not saying don't do anything, and he's not saying do everything. It's that ethical sensitivity that we develop over the course of practice. And even if we're not intentionally developing it, to just sit with our own experience, it's a sensitizing process, because we're becoming sensitive to, again, even those subtle movements. What gives rise to ease, and what gives rise to contraction, to tension. In this way, our practice can be motivated by wishing for our own well-being and for the well-being of others. And the Buddha said that was the best kind of motivation, not just wishing for our own well-being, not just wishing for others' well-being, but wishing for the well-being of both. And there's a way that we can think of our practice in that way, that the more we understand about our own minds and hearts, the more we're in a position to be helpful in the world. There's a quote that people, if we're sinking in the mud, it's impossible to help others who are sinking in the mud. So this is from Gil Fronsdal. I'll just end with this. This is from a whole manuscript he wrote on called The Equivalence of Ethics and Enlightenment, just making this point about how connected those two are, our practice for, for our own well-being and for the well-being of others. He says, to understand Buddhist practice as a life of mutual benefit is to clearly place our practice within the context of our social life. Even if we spend long periods of time in mostly solitary practice, there's always a social dimension to our practice. So thank you for your practice these weeks and going forward, hopefully. So I'll turn it over to Shelly to guide us through some dyads, reflections.
Okay. So we wanted to just have, can you all hear me on Zoom? Okay, great. Just have some time to bring this class to some closure. And Gabe was really kind of talking us into the next phase of our class, which is taking our practice home with us and how relevant it is. What we're doing is relevant both here on the cushion and relevant in our daily lives. So just to keep the question really broad, but we'd like everybody to break up into pairs and in just a minute, and to just ask a very simple question, just to take a few minutes of silence in the beginning first and reflect on what a value are you taking with you into your life? And how is this relevant? What do you want to nurture when you're at work, when you're at school, when you're with your family, when you're with your partner, when you're taking care of your animals, when you're tending to your children, when you're taking the bus, when you're at the grocery store, when you're making a purchase? What a value do you want to take with you into those moments? And I'm going to ring the bell. And on Zoom, I'll post a little something in the chat just to ask you to pause in your dyad. So every 3 minutes. So we're just going to take 10 minutes for this to go back and forth with each other. But every 3 minutes, we're just going to pause and we're going to deepen into that same inquiry. So to just totally let go of your train of thought and to just sink into the possibility of that response again. Like, no, not just that, but really, what a value do I want to take with me? And then I'll ring the bell again in about 3 minutes. And then just the invitation again to go, okay, set that totally aside. But really, what do I want to, what a value do I want to continue to nurture in the days and weeks ahead? Yeah. Does that make sense? Sort of. Yeah. Let me know if there's any confusion, questions. Cool. And then, of course, if you deviate from that and do something because you forgot or whatever, it's totally fine. Just do you and come back and be willing to talk about it. Okay. So we'll just go, yep, go for it. 10 minutes. Yeah. And every 3 minutes, I'll post a little something. Then you have a 1 minute to wrap it up. And we'll just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Is that okay? 1, 2. And then 1 back there. And 2. Nope. These. Oh, sure. Whatever. So, do you know who you? Okay, you 4 are gonna figure it out. 1, 2 right here. No. And then 1, 2 right here. And we'll go 1, 2 like that. And then you guys know each other back there? Yeah. How about we split up? So we'll go like 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. Good? Okay. Cool. So find your own space in this room. And you can get started when you're ready.
All right, so someone's in. All right.
Give the Zoomers another minute or two. There they come. Welcome back, Zoomers. So how was that? Give me like, you loved it. Oh, two thumbs up. That's great. Anybody like, oh, it was kind of intense. It was just all right. Anybody? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, great, great, great. Zoomers, give me a thumbs up if you loved it. Yeah. Give me a thumb sideways if it was a little intense, but you managed. Mostly thumbs. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd probably be at least a thumb sideways. Talking parts. Anybody want to share a little bit about what came up for you? Let me ask a different question. Did you notice, did you have the same or different answer when you deepened into that inquiry? No takers on that one either, huh? Hey, thank you.
I'm Elena, she, her, my pronouns. I had a different answer each time
Oh, wow.
we paused. And I'll share one of mine. I wanted to take with me what I'd learned about the five hindrances. And also I wanted to be able to analyze my actions before I act, as I'm acting, and after I've acted. I was telling Gavin that I feel like that's just such a beautiful way of like self-refinement.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Did the hindrances come up for anybody else? Yeah? Oh, great. Cool. Anybody else have a the same answer, but perhaps a different flavor of that same answer as you deepened into that inquiry? Anybody have different response that you'd like to share? Yeah, thank you.
I'm George. This isn't necessarily in response to what she said, but Danny and I here both, I think, felt that the loving kindness topic from last week especially resonated. Um, and I might not have said this directly to her, nor do I necessarily know how to explain this, but I guess, in my day-to-day life, I'm a math geek. And I mention that because I think I really like to get to the root of things. So it's like when I think about goodwill or benevolence towards other people, I think in the past, that might have been something that I cared about, but it's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, I should remember to be generous. I should remember to ask people how they're doing. I should do XYZ things. I should spend enough time with this person, that person, like became a sort of like giant nebulous checklist. Um, and there's something about the meditation practice, to me, it feels like it gets closer to the root. Like if I can sit and maybe stop the sort of scattered mind a little bit and just take a second to feel what goodwill feels like towards other people.
Mm.
Feel what love towards other people feels like. That a lot of those actions start to unfold a little more naturally without necessarily striving for them. So that's one thing I took away and reflected on.
Thank you, George. Yeah, love that. Yeah. Sometimes at the heart of the uh, dilemma about how we learn to be responsive and skillful and kind and relationship to others is, what Gabe was talking about, just our own ability to tolerate our own pain. Yeah. So noticing the heart that's fragmented, or, you know, running through a checklist, or just to pause and be able to feel that, to make space for the natural goodwill that might be there. It's been an important teaching for me. Anybody else want to share, or we can also open it up to questions. Anything goes. So Gabe and I'll just take turns passing the mic back and forth if you have any questions or reflections about the class, any of the content, meditations. What do you do now? I have a few announcements, so we'll talk about other programs at Common Ground and what might make sense as next steps. So we'll save that for a few minutes, but yeah, anything you have to say would be great.
Yeah, who'd like to share? We've got someone in the room here. And say your name again for us if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Dan. One thing of value that I would like to take home with me was the experience of doing this meditation class with other people. I'm likely to err on the side of doing things all by myself in my day-to-day life. And I think a caricature of the meditating person is that they're all by themselves, sitting like completely in solitude. So I guess in retrospect, I'm not really surprised, but my experience was that it was really easy to do. It was much easier to meditate in a room full of other people. So that's helpful to know and to have experienced, and it feels valuable. So that's something of value. I'm sure you all will answer our questions about when to come back now that class is over.
Yeah, we will. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else feel like it was nice to do this with others? Yeah, it's kind of, I find it such a beautiful thing that we do this very, in a way, personal work supported by others. And we're sort of supporting each other in the quiet to be with our own experience. But we also know that they're there kind of doing their own practice. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I think there's something deep about it, that maybe extends beyond meditation. Kind of like similar to what I was saying, like we take care of ourselves so that we can show up in a good way with others. And yeah, we're never completely alone. And we're always most intimate with our own direct experience. So it makes sense to, get to know that. Did you have a thought? Or you just, okay, gotcha. Anyone on Zoom want to share anything you're taking home or any questions? Pass this back to you.
Yeah, Elena.
I have a question, and it's the same question from last week. I had asked about love and kindness and extending love and kindness to people who are indifferent. And I find that it's a drain on my energy if I extend love and kindness to people who are indifferent. So my question initially was, how can I retain my energy when I'm extending love and kindness to those indifferent folks? And Shelly, I think you initially had answered like, if there's tension between you and another person, be willing to include those feelings of tension and notice and maybe even reconcile with them. And I think I understood that as instead of like saying good morning in a really loving, kind way to those indifferent people, maybe it's just a nod And then it's like a reflection later on why I feel like there's tension between that person and I. I don't know if you can continue to speak upon that or talk about what it's like to extend love and kindness to indifferent people.
Yeah, maybe I'll try a different angle this time. Sometimes it feels to us like it's loving kindness, but what we're missing is that it's both love and clinging, you know? And what's tiring is wanting something to be different than it is. So trying to send love, but really not wanting the person to be indifferent or really not wanting the person to be the way that they are. So it's like love that's mixed up with something else. And so including that, being willing to include like, oh yeah, it's love and more, right? Maybe there's a deep, wholesome desire, really beautiful, wholesome desire to want to be in a relationship. And when we can accept that, oh, there's an unmet need here, and it's getting projected onto why can't this person be a little bit different? If I can connect with, oh, like I have this need to be in a relationship, and right now I don't feel that need isn't being met. How can I take care of that? How can I love that? How can I love myself right now? How can I acknowledge that there's this need? And at least for me, I find that honesty, that radical honesty, it really frees up some energy to accept people the way that they are, to accept the world the way it is, right? I want the world to be different, but it's not. Yeah. I want the world to be different because I care. I care about people, I care about humanity, I care about non-suffering, and yet balancing that with, oh, there's a limit to that care. That care doesn't make things change. And so how do I tend to the heart that really wants something to be different so that it helps me stand up in the middle of life as it is and be able to say, oh, yes, it's like this. And I can still extend care. But then the care is like extended without, it's just a wholehearted, like, oh, yeah, good morning, you know? It doesn't have to be abundant. Like sometimes notice like with my godchildren, I'll be a little bit big, like, hi. And they're sort of like, you have to be so big about it. But it's like I'm trying to convince them of something, draw them in. And just a simple like, what's up might be enough. They might know. That might be honoring where they're at a little bit more than like, hey, come to me. This is great. How are we gonna have fun? And they just want to tell me to stop being weird. Yeah.
Yeah, Shelly, that's really helpful. And not only just the meeting people where they're at, but learning to accept where people are at and what the situation is, and then being able to reconcile that there might be a need within you that's not being met, and then working with that and loving that. That's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts? Your last chance in this class. Okay.
I have a question. My name is Maggie, and I feel like I still keep going back to this thing of I just feel like I'm being very judgmental towards myself when I'm kind of having like a fleeting thought or thoughts. I think that's my issue still. But I think both of you are really good at saying like this is the way it is, just kind of having this verbiage to use. And I guess I'm asking, like, what are some kind things that you can kind of say or to kind of get back into this is just the way it is? Like, oh, there's a thought, we're just watching it like a cloud, but like not having another like judgment to that. I think that's what I'm really struggling with. And I guess like any words or any things that you can kind of say to kind of ease back into like this, just be here, just being like kind, I guess.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
What would you say?
that's the whole thing. I'm like trying, like everyone's saying things. I'm like, well, this is what I would say to them if they were having this thought. But for myself, this is the issue. Like for some reason, it's just really difficult for myself. Like I'm so hard on myself. I'm like, no, why are you having that thought? And then that leads to a whole thing. And I'm like, wait, but it's just here. And I get that that's the practice, but it's like, I
Yeah.
guess I get caught up with that.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone. A lot of
Feel good, okay.
a lot of yeah, a lot of us have that kind of harsh inner critic,
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of for whatever different reasons, a strong part of our mind, of our conditioning. Um, you can you can try on some of the traditional phrases and do like just set aside some time to do formal loving kindness practice like we did last week. Um, so like the formal phrases are things like, may I be safe and protected. May I be happy and peaceful. May I be healthy and free from pain. May I take care of my life with ease and joy. And so if that resonates enough, if that feels true enough, like something you can say that feels true enough, then you could just use traditional phrases like that or come up with your own again. And what I've found is that practice, because if we're connecting with those phrases and it is something true, like yeah, that is true. I do wish myself well. It can kind of we get in touch with that truth that yeah, I do care about this being, and it's like yeah, just like anything, you know, if we've practiced being self-critical, then that habit has momentum. So we want to water the seeds of goodwill, of kindness towards ourselves. And in some ways, doing it in that formal way, where that's really the only intention, can be helpful because, yeah, we're putting everything else aside. You know, even like awareness, mindfulness practice. I mean, we're still being aware, but even our awareness practice, like you're saying, I think could have the flavor of judgment if we think, well, this is the practice where I see myself and I judge myself. So to do metta practice, the practice there is to strengthen and to water those seeds of kindness. And it's kind of lovely that that's, you know, you can do that. You can, and there's all sorts of ways to do that, like we mentioned last week. And you kind of just have to see what works for you. Again, you could try the traditional phrases, um, images, you know, something I've done is, which is recommended is like if you have a photo or if you remember a photo of yourself as a child, you know, like, oh yeah, you know, so we're connecting with what's good, you know, and we're wishing that being well. So it's really yeah, whatever works basically. Yeah. So there's no rules, you know, you're connecting with something true. I think that's important. So you're finding what is it that how can I access that well wishing for myself? Um, and yeah, like I mentioned, other people who have, you know, wished us well, connecting with that and just the receiving of that, like being in nature, animals. It's really wherever there is the absence of that very familiar criticism, because that we can feel, oh, that feels so good. And we can begin to get in touch with that. So there's all sorts of resources you can find, but you just want to find something that sparks that, and then you just kind of follow that. Maybe you repeat that, bring it to mind. So it's sort of this retraining of the mind. Yeah, so hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay. We'll turn it over to you for some closing.
Offer a few announcements and then you can jump in. So a lot of you probably are wondering, what do we do now? And you're ready for anything. So you're ready for the world. Go forward and bring mindfulness into your life. And you have a solid foundation. You may not believe that. the mind might have some doubt, and that's totally fine. That just gets to be there. You keep practicing and deepening. So, but trust that you have a good foundation with this class. You have a good sense of what the practice is, what the language is. We'll have to hear it a lot, a lot, a lot. Gabe and I have to still hear it a lot, because there's a lot of layers of conditioning to penetrate, and that's just true throughout a human life. So, but don't be shy to jump into whatever feels right next. So, and at Common Ground, there's a lot of things on the calendar. So our anchor programs, if you will, here at the center are the weekly practice groups. And there are two of those on Sundays, one Sunday mornings led by Mark Nunberg, our co-guiding teacher. And then Sunday evening, I lead one. I'm the other co-guiding teacher. And then Mark leads an online group on Tuesday evenings at the same time as this class. And I lead a hybrid online in-person weekly practice group on Wednesday evenings. So you don't have to remember those dates and times, but just look on the calendar for that language of weekly practice groups, or on the bulletin board out there, and you can snap a photo with your phone or whatever. So just know those are kind of and they're good for beginners, good for longtime practitioners. We really unfold the teachings of the Buddha there. Yeah. We always start with a guided meditation, so you get some practice, and then we'll give a little talk and offer a little bit of time usually for questions. There's a family program on Sunday morning, so if you have kids and you want to bring them to the children's program, you're welcome to do that. Every other week, kids and preteens meet, and then every other week, there's a group for teens. So there's a whole group of programs we call community groups, and they're peer-led groups. So they're peer-led. There's not a formal teaching happening there, but folks are coming together to share space and build community, often around a particular shared interest or theme in life. So there's a millennials group that meets on Friday
Young
nights. Oh, young adult.
We're
Okay.
too old now.
Too.
Millennials are still.
You're too old.
No.
Young adult group on what Friday is that? Fourth Friday. Yeah. And let's see, there's a loving kindness practice the first Friday of every month that Mark Nunberg and Stacy McClendon share the leadership of, so they take turns. And half day and day long retreats are also great. So you're ready for those, even if you don't think so, you are. If you can sit for half an hour, you can sit for half a day. It's just a sitting, walking, little Dharma instruction, little conversation, and then before you know it, you're there. So usually the first Saturday of the month is half day, and the last Saturday of the month is day long. There's some exceptions to that depending on how the calendar flows, but usually it follows that pattern. It's a lot of stuff going on out of our retreat center. So we have practice periods, which are more spacious kind of retreat opportunities. They're led by practice leaders, not teachers, but they hold the schedule and keep the flow going. Have often a time they pick a Dharma talk from our online repertoire and play it for everybody. And they also lead a facilitated conversation at those practice periods. And then interspersed with practice periods, there are teacher-led retreats. So Gabe leads retreats out there with Mark, with me. Gabe and I are leading a young adult retreat together, and lots of other things. So anything else?
Donna? Oh, yeah. And the best way to stay in touch is to get on our weekly email list. And you can do that on the website, or there's a form to fill out. And then I'll just take a minute to say a few words about how, yeah, generosity, freely giving and freely receiving is just really baked into how we do things here, and just the Buddha's teachings and the tradition. And there's no, suggested donation for this class. It's really just part of the tradition that we've been offered these teachings in this way. We're offering them in that way. And so it's really a practice. It's not necessarily easy to receive this building and the teachings as a free gift, because that's what we're inspired to do. And so then if you feel inspired to give a gift to support Common Ground, to support us, that's a free gift too. And it's about what makes you happy, really. And so you can take time to think about it. It doesn't have to be money. You can volunteer. I work here and I coordinate volunteers. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to give back in that way. And yeah, let it be a practice of finding what makes you happy instead of what you think you should do. Because everyone's situation is different. And the point is, you're not giving because you have to, but because you want to, and you're inspired to, keep this place going. So thanks for your participation in that and in this class. And may you be well and happy, and may your practice be a source of happiness for you and those around you. And hope to see you down the road. Don't be a stranger. You're good to go, like Shelly said. And big thanks to Gavin for running the tech these 6 weeks. It's been really, really supportive. Okay, have a good night, everyone.